a work for hire is a designation in an area of the copyright law that says, look, there are some instances where the copyright is not going to belong to the person who wrote the article or created the song. The copyright is going to belong to a company or an entity. What are those situations? Well, think about, let's put music aside for a minute. Think about other situations. What do people who write for a newspaper do? They write articles. If they're writing an article for themselves, bam, they're copyright owner. They are the author of that article. But let's say the Boston Phoenix, for instance, hires me to write articles. And that's my job description. I'm hired by the Boston Phoenix to write articles on music or theater, film, whatever it is. The copyright law says in such a situation that the company, the Boston Phoenix, is going to be the author of that article. So even though there's an individual involved, for copyright purposes, that individual isn't involved. The Boston Phoenix is the copyright holder from the very beginning of that article. So in music situations, what happened many years ago was in recording contracts, there was a provision that says anything you, recording artist, boy band, record pursuant to this recording contract is going to be considered a work for hire, meaning that all those sound recordings you're doing, the way you're playing the guitar, blah, 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 those master recordings belong to the record company as works for hire. And I'm sure you've seen these contracts many times. That's what they said, that the sound recordings are works for hire and the record company owns them for the life of the copyright. No reversion. Why? Because the company is the author. And somebody woke up, well, I think actually before the artists woke up to this whole thing, the RIAA woke up to the whole thing. And what year was that? Maybe 10 years ago? Tried to put into the copyright law an amendment to the copyright law that would say sound recordings are works for hire. I have to back up a little bit though. The copyright law makes it very specific in terms of what situations there can be a work for hire. If you're not getting a W-9 or a W-2 from the company, you're probably not creating works for hire. I mean, it's for an employment situation. It's for that journalist that's hired by the Boston Phoenix, and they get a salary and benefits and 401k and all that stuff. But in a record company deal, record company is entering into a contractual relationship with the artist, but they're not getting a salary, and they're not getting a W-9, and they're not getting any of those incidents of employment. Therefore, any copyright expert would look at that situation, and or a copyright judge or jury or whatever, looking at copyright law would say, that doesn't fit into what we know as a work for hire. Therefore, these sound recordings that the artists are making, we don't care what the paper says. Under the copyright law, that sound recording belongs to the artist. So, as we started saying, 10 years ago, the RIAA, which is the Recording Industry Association of America, it's the lobbying group for the record companies, tried to slip in an appropriations bill a complete change to the copyright law that would say, oh yeah, but by the way, sound recordings can be, even though they're not like this employer thing, they can be works for hire too. And they got it in. It was signed off on. And then all of a sudden, somebody said, whoa, wait a minute, that's a serious change to copyright law. And there was a big brouhaha about it, and that was reversed. The sound recording are not automatically. Now, what effect does that have? Well, for one thing, the record companies started putting in their contracts, before that, as long as I've been basically reading contracts, they say these sound recordings are a work for hire. And if they're not a work for hire, all the artist's rights in the sound recording are hereby assigned 100% to the record company. So that's what we call in the business a belt and suspenders kind of approach to it. That, okay, we're going to try this work for hire theory, but we're sort of know it's not going to fly very well, so you're giving us any rights you have. Now, why is it important? It's important for this reason. Remember the reversion provision that we talked about for copyright law? If Aerosmith, for instance, recorded in master recordings for, I don't remember the label they were on, but recorded master recordings in 1977, shall we say, because this reversion thing didn't come in until 1976. There was a major change to the copyright law in 1976, and that's when this reversion deal got put into the copyright law. 1976, Aerosmith makes these sound recordings. They belong to, let's say it's Warner Records. 35 years, if Aerosmith are truly the authors of that sound recording, they are really the owners of the sound recording. And this whole work for hire deal that Warner's was saying, no, it was a work for hire. And Aerosmith says, no way, it wasn't a work for hire. We have the right to seek reversion of our copyright after 35 years. So they could say to Warner, hey, dudes, send us those master tapes because we are invoking our right to revert the copyright in those sound recordings back to us.